How a piece of rotten meat sparked America's food safety revolution. In 1906, the publication of a novel sent tremors through breakfast tables across the United States, not because of war, nor because of an economic crisis, but because the meat they consumed might have come from dead pigs and diseased cattle, mixed with rats, acid, and chemical agents. The book was titled The Jungle, authored by Upton Sinclair. His original intention was to expose the miserable conditions faced by immigrant laborers in America and call for social reform. But he never anticipated that what truly ignited public outrage would be his graphic descriptions of the unsanitary practices within meatpacking plants. Cattle infected with tuberculosis were sent to rendering, dead pigs mixed into sausages, meat scraps on the floor scraped up with rats into grinding machines. These were not fictional exaggerations, but actual observations made by Sinclair during several months working at Swift & Company in Chicago. Chicago's packing town, the dark side of an industrial miracle. At the beginning of the 20th century, Chicago served as America's meat heart. Every day, hundreds of thousands of cattle and hogs arrived by rail into the city's slaughterhouses. Here emerged the prototype of modern food industry: assembly lines, standardization, and mass production. Yet behind this facade of progress lay a shocking reality. To maximize profits, meatpacking plants exploited every possible resource, even mixing meat scraps into sausages for sale. Even more alarming, to mask spoilage, factories used chemicals such as boric acid and formaldehyde to treat rotten meat. What consumers ate, labeled as premium brand sausage, was actually a mixture of lard, beef tallow, and offal. The Jungle released public outrage and presidential fury. In 1906, The Jungle was officially published, although the New York Times dismissed it as sensationalist, calling it a mere attention grabber. President Theodore Roosevelt took it seriously. After reading it, he was deeply shocked and immediately dispatched 2 investigators to secretly infiltrate Chicago's meatpacking facilities. Months later, the investigation report was completed, revealing conditions even worse than those described in the novel. The report indicated workers labored in blood-soaked facilities. Sick animals were slaughtered without inspection. Workbenches swarmed with flies. And in one case, a worker had fallen into a lard vat and been processed into meat products. Roosevelt did not release the report immediately, choosing instead to wait for Congress to advance legislation. But Sinclair refused to stay silent. He published an article in the New York Times questioning, "Do the people have the right to know the truth?" Public sentiment exploded instantly. Legislative storm, 2 laws that transformed America. Under immense public pressure, the U.S. Congress acted swiftly. In June 1906, the Federal Meat Inspection Act was passed, mandating federal inspection of all meat sold across state lines, with inspection costs borne by the producers. Later that same year, the Pure Food and Drug Act was enacted, prohibiting the sale of adulterated or misbranded food and drugs, becoming the cornerstone of modern food and drug regulation. The passage of these 2 laws marked the first large-scale intervention by the U.S. federal government into the domain of food safety and led to the eventual creation of what would become the U.S. Food and Drug Administration, FDA. Earlier hazards, the era of patent medicine fraud. Even before the Jungle, America's food safety crisis had already spread into the pharmaceutical sector. From the late 19th century to the early 20th century, patent medicines flooded the market. These products were not genuine patented medicines, but sugar syrups or alcohol mixtures marketed under the guise of secret formulas, claiming to cure cancer, tuberculosis, and rheumatism. Advertisements saturated newspapers, accounting for over 40% of newspaper revenues. More alarmingly, many so-called anti-alcohol remedies contained alcohol. Anti-smoking remedies contained nicotine, and some even included cocaine. Coca-Cola originally started as a cocaine-laced tonic, marketed as a brain tonic, and a treatment for neurasthenia. It wasn't until the Pure Food and Drug Act came into effect that these poisons were required to disclose their ingredients, gradually being phased out of the market. Once health-related products enter the marketplace, they inevitably become subject to commercial exploitation. Historical lessons: regulation as the foundation of civilization. The irony of the jungle lies in this. Sinclair sought to awaken class consciousness among workers, but ended up only awakening the American stomach. Yet precisely this fear for personal health drove the most profound consumer protection legislation in American history. It teaches us that economic freedom must not come at the expense of public health. The profit-driven nature of business requires institutional constraints, and consumer right to information is a fundamental right in a democratic society. Today, when we pick up a package labeled no additives or non-GMO, let us remember, behind these labels lies a legacy built over a century ago by a writer with his pen, a president with his authority, and countless workers with their blood, a legacy of institutional progress. Food safety has never been something to take for granted. It is an ongoing struggle, and the very foundation of a civilized society. America's food safety system has not only shaped its domestic food production and consumption environment, but also exerted profound and far-reaching influence globally on food safety standards, regulatory frameworks, food trade, and technological development. Through its advanced institutional design, strong scientific and technological capabilities, dominant position in international trade, and active participation in global governance, America's food safety system has profoundly influenced the world.